Hello and welcome back to the Boropolis podcast. As always, I am joined with Nathan, and on this week's episode, we have Middlesbrough 2, Oxford United 1 to discuss. Middlesbrough did their job today in what is really the beginning of the race for the playoffs, the run-in, whatever you want to call it. All of the cliches are coming out. 7 cup finals remain. And actually, we're recording this on Saturday night, and for once, against a lower ranked team in the division at home, Middlesbrough have done their job. They did give us a little bit of a scare, Nathan, but they leave us with 7 games to go, level on points in the playoffs, or outside technically on goal difference, but 1 game down in the running. And as I say, quite a nice place to be recording this on a Saturday evening.
Yeah, 100%, Chris. It's been something that I've looked at throughout the international break, looking at the fixtures, taking in a lot of content from different championship content creators and seeing where other clubs' fans' heads are at with their team and their running into hopefully the playoffs for lots of teams. And this weekend was earmarked in my mind as one where we could gain either a position up the table or points back on the teams above us because of their fixtures against difficult opposition who are fighting for automatic promotion, and obviously our fixture against a side that are down there and fighting for their lives at the bottom of the table. Definitely didn't think it was going to be a gimme 3 points, but seeing Oxford at home, it's an opportunity that you have to take advantage of. And Boro have just about done that this afternoon, which is really, really nice to be able to come on here and talk about. And with 7 games to go, have a little bit of optimism, a little bit of a tease that we are still in the mix for the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, really, no disrespect to Oxford today, but for a team, willing themselves to get in the playoffs, today was a non-negotiable, really. It was, especially as you say, I know you can only kind of control what's in your control, but with the fixtures in and around us, it felt that nothing less than a win. Had we have, even if the results had gone their way today as they have done and we'd have picked up a point, the league table wouldn't have looked so bad. But I think looking at the bigger picture with the remaining games, it would have felt like a huge, huge missed opportunity. And thankfully, we don't have to record a podcast about one missed opportunity. Obviously, as I say, Middlesbrough did give us a scare in the first half. I mean, just obviously going into the game, it was an unchanged side from Luton. Were you a little bit surprised with Michael Carrick's decision there?
Possibly a little bit, especially the forward players, really more than anything. I wasn't necessarily too surprised that he kept the same back 5, including Mark Travers, obviously, because of keeping a clean sheet in the previous game, albeit a little bit fortunately with Travers making a lot of saves. But Howson and Borges hadn't necessarily put too much of a foot wrong in the games that they've had at centre back with each other. But as I say, I was more sort of confused about the forward line, especially the last 2 away games now, away at Swansea and away at Luton. We've been struggling to create. Okay, this one's at home against a side where you'd assume they would give up chances. But yeah, I just felt that maybe there could have been a couple of tweaks, especially with Iheanacho a little bit anonymous at Luton, especially, and QPR was a little bit quiet again in that one. I mean, let's be honest, he's been quiet throughout his Middlesbrough career so far. And yeah, there could have been a couple of calls that could have been made in terms of maybe Morgan Whittaker starting or a Marcus Force in Iheanacho's place. But on the whole, it didn't necessarily matter all too much today. Whatever team Michael Carrick picked, I was confident going in that we would create chances. at home against Oxford and hopefully get the 3 points. So just the way that it's worked out for us is great in the end, with Iheanacho getting off the mark as well.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, to be honest, it was somewhat of a shock for me. Not so much the defence, or obviously the two of Hackney and Morrison midfield. Even with the news that Vandenberg was going to be back in and around, and obviously good news, the fact that Riley McGree's turned up is a positive, I guess. But yeah, in terms of the fact that Rav Vandenberg hasn't played an awful amount of football over the last month or so, and also the fact that, admittedly, as you say, Luton was fortuitous in terms of a clean sheet, but they kept a clean sheet at the end of the day, so no surprise there. I think most surprisingly, it was, as you say, Iheanacho starting again. I was fully expecting Morgan Whittaker to start. I thought that Michael Carrick would be tempted to use him from the off today, especially being back at home against a side that probably are going to sit deep, might allow him to get some of those long range shots off that he likes to do. But yeah, I mean, as you say, in the end, it's worked out okay, but somewhat of a shock given that that forward line, especially in the last two away games, were really really ineffective. But let's not get drawn on that. I mean, to be honest, Nathan, if we're gonna be brutally honest, first half it did feel like a little bit of a Swansea Luton away type performance. It just happened to be at the Riverside. We were very, very, very lucky to go in at the break without being 1, 2, 3 goals down. They had not only chances, they had some real, real clear-cut chances. And admittedly, yes, Iheanacho should probably score. He hits the bar in the first half. But my goodness, for what felt like probably 35 minutes of the first half, it was just relentless pressure, really. And those long throws from Will Vaux were causing all sorts of issues as well, weren't they?
Yeah, they're always difficult, especially for a Boro side that isn't necessarily the team in the division that's blessed with height or physicality, really. Yeah, they credit to them, in fairness, they created a lot of chances in that opening half an hour, especially. Plaheta has one. Phillips puts a ball across the face of goal. Plaheta's there, about 10 yards out. Travers makes an incredible save, in fairness to him, getting across the goal and making a save from point blank range. And there was a good few other chances as well. Phillips missed one from a set piece, which again 6 yards out, and he somehow doesn't find the target. And yeah, there was a couple of other chances that came from those long throws, as you mentioned. They caused us problems all day and did have my heart in my mouth a couple of times throughout the game with those balls being hurled into the box towards Michael Hellick's magnet head.
Yeah, is Hellick? Do you know what? Obviously, I'm aware of Hellick just because he's, as we pointed out, really just before we started recording, he's become a little bit inevitable against Middlesbrough, hasn't he? In terms of popping up with a goal. I honestly can't remember him being that tall the last time that we played against him. Whether that would have been Huddersfield last year in terms of seeing him in the flesh. He's got to be 6'4", 6'5", because he, as you say, he just seemed like a lamppost in the box. I mean, a lamppost with a very good finish on in mind, considering the goal that give Oxford the lead. But yeah, as you say, it was just like a magnet. Those throws and set pieces to him, he was causing us all kinds of issues, really.
Yeah, he was, and not just him as well. In fairness, there was Kieran Brown and Ben Nelson as well there for Oxford, the defenders that were going up for those set pieces. It was a little bit frustrating for me as well, just from even the fifth minute, they were taking long throws and taking the time to get the back four up the pitch and get them into the box and sort of rejig their shape to suit the set piece. But yeah, after a little bit of pressure, Boro did grow into the game in the first half a little bit, had a little bit of territory in Oxford's half, but then it was coming really from the initial period of pressure. Volks hurls the ball into the box. The ball breaks down and it's set nicely for Helik. And as you mentioned, it's a fantastic finish. In fairness to him, drills it low and hard into the corner. And yeah, a little incident from our side of the pitch, which was nice to see in hindsight, was moments before taking the throw, as he was drying the ball, Will Volks turned round and answered someone in the West Stand and gave them a little bit of something back. Probably someone making a comment at how long it was taking for him to dry the ball every time he was about to take a throw in. And the ball goes into the back of the net. Volks turns round to the West Stand, gives it one to the bloke. And yeah, in hindsight, it's nice to be sat here at 9 o'clock on a Saturday evening discussing the game, discussing the 3 points, and Will Volks won't be home yet.
Yeah, yeah, he's still got a little bit to go on the coach, no doubt. But yeah, as you say, it was it was coming, wasn't it? It was very much. It would have been a complete shock, as I say, had Oxford have not gone into half time with the lead, and not just a lead, but a convincing lead. And yeah, I thought first half it did, other than the Iheanacho chance, which kind of almost come from nothing. They were very, not only causing us issues, obviously in our own box, but I thought they defended quite well first half, and there was a few times where Azaz was sort of trying his best to poke balls through and find like the most intricate of passes past what felt like, literally the team bus, parked on the edge of their box at times. Two banks of what felt like 15 players, not just 10 or 11. But yeah, it was an interesting one because that chance kind of ricocheted about, it bobbled around, and sort of it felt like it. I mean, Iheanacho's not really looked like scoring at all, but it's one of those where if he is going to score, you feel like it'll come off his backside, or it'll be like quite fortunate. And it did. It like bundled around. He was trying to control it. It was bouncing off his knees, and then it kind of, there was an opening, and you thought, okay, it's on his left foot. Please just hit the target. And I mean, like, kind of, it was always going to happen, really, especially the frustration was beginning to grow, and it just clips back off the bar. But yeah, as I say, I want to give Oxford credit, and I think had the result have been different in hindsight, I probably would have come on here and absolutely berated the first half performance. I mean, we weren't good. I'm not saying that at all, but it was almost as if, partly down to Oxford's, you know, rigidity and the fact that they were defending as a team. They've got some. I mean, I quite rate Helik, to be honest. I know you joke. I mean, before he joined Oxford, I said we could do a lot worse in terms of a centre half, and you were like, "Chris, get out of here." There's a reason why he's been relegated and played for like teams down the bottom end of the table for the majority of his championship career. But anyway, that's by the by. But yeah, it was partly Oxford defending well, but then it did begin to feel a little bit like, as I say, probably not to the extent, not as bad, but it just felt like that front four. It was. It felt to me like, if I'm being totally honest, I wouldn't have been surprised if Iheanacho or Bergzorg, or well, any of the front four really had not come out for the second half, because it was, there was just no click at all. There was no spark. There was that one chance, of course, as I've mentioned, but it was very much same of the same, really. We just looked a little bit devoid of ideas. Hackney was trying his best to sort of go through the lines and really force something through, but yeah, as I say, it wasn't a great watch first half. And to be honest, we discussed it just before we started recording. The big thing for me second half, because I felt polar opposites really, was actually something. Okay, yes, Middlesbrough have managed to exploit, but it was actually the injury to Matt Phillips that really gave Boro so much joy in the second half. Of course, Matt Phillips was playing as a bit of an unorthodox sort of left wing back in the first half. He went down once in the first half, come off in the second half, or at half time, I should say. And then that meant the Oxford right back moved over, which allowed Kioso to come onto the pitch for Oxford. And at that point, Samuel Illing Jr.'s Middlesbrough career just burst into life, because he had the freedom of the other side second half. Kioso, countless times, just tucked in so much. It was bizarre. He was getting no help, in fairness, from right-hand sided sort of midfielder or right forward. I guess Plaheta was playing there predominantly or slightly off Harris in the first half, and trying to give him a little bit of a hand on the right. But countless times he just tucked in. And there was so many times where Middlesbrough eventually sussed out that Illing Jr. had so much space. And it did take them a little while in the second half. But once they did, I think in the end, Illing Jr. put something like, in fact, I'm going to pull up the exact stat, because I tweeted about it just earlier and it slipped my mind. Illing Jr. put in 12 crosses today. And I don't know the stats for this, by the way, but I'd be willing to bet that at least 70% of those come in the second half.
Yeah, he was definitely more effective in that second half, wasn't he? A lot more crosses coming in from that side in the second half. And obviously, our 2 goals come from that side as well. But I did feel that in the first half, yes, a lot of our chances were, or half chances in the first half were coming down our right more than left. So yeah, although Dijksteel didn't have the greatest game, and Bergzorg was nowhere near as direct as I wanted him to be in that first half, especially playing up against Phillips, who is more of a winger by trade. There was a couple of instances where Bergzorg would be found in the sort of right-hand side pocket, and instead of taking it on his right foot in the first half, he'd try and roll his foot over the top of the ball and bring himself inside, and it just wasn't working. But yeah, as you say, in the second half, we had a lot more joy down that left-hand side. Whether that was down to Oxford's right back being so tucked in that second half, and that was seen by our coaching staff and exploited by them saying, right, move over and try and attack down this left-hand side more predominantly, or not. I'm not so sure, but yeah, we did have a lot more joy down that left-hand side, and the goal coming as early as it did in the second half was a massive boost for us. I think had it drawn on, the crowd would have got more frustrated, the players would have got more frustrated, would have tried to force things, and it just wouldn't have been a good afternoon for us. And it's actually a really sort of good move down that left-hand side. Hackney plays a great ball into Illing Jr. And I really, really, really like the fact that he's taken this first touch and just spanked across the face of the box with precision, accuracy, pace, and it takes out an Oxford defender who's marking Iheanacho in the box, who he tries to scoop the ball away. I think it's Brown, tries to scoop the ball away, but isn't able to. And as the ball's coming across, you're just hoping that someone's there, and Iheanacho's arriving, and you're thinking, please, you can tell that his confidence isn't all there, really.
I think you can tell from his celebration, which I'm sure you're going to get on, how low his confidence is. And in the first half, just on the confidence point, I don't know if you saw this, but when he did hit the crossbar, he was kind of like putting his shirt over his head, like head in hands. And look, Tommy Conway's got a lot of praise, especially during that bad run of form, for basically being a voice to the fans and being basically just fronting up. But in terms of a character that you want, he's gone straight over to Iheanacho, put his arm around him and said, just keep going, forget about it, you'll get another one. And I think Conway, as you'll get onto again, looks more delighted when Iheanacho scores than what actually Iheanacho is, which is a lovely moment in fairness. I know he's come under criticism, but you certainly kind of can't question the character of Conway, firstly, but also just the togetherness of the team.
Yeah, 100%. And as I say, ball comes across the box, and there he is, the senior man, flying in, and yeah, a left-footed finish, just buries it into the back of the net. And yeah, as you say, the celebration, Conway flies straight over to him. Iheanacho, I think his reaction is definitely more of relief. You can just see the weight coming off his shoulders as he buries that into the back of the net, puts his hands over his face. He's overcome with emotion. He's had a difficult time since he's been here so far. I think a lot of things have sort of accounted for that. Him arriving unfit, arriving not played hardly any games this season at all, fitting back into a team that is incredibly out of form with all of those things beforehand, those factors of him being unfit have made it very difficult for him. And obviously, the fans have been on his back, rightfully so as well. We've been on his back. And in that first half as well, he didn't look great. Every touch that he was taking was not changing the angle. It was always straight back to where it had come from and then switching the angle. And it was frustrating to watch. Obviously, he hits the bar, really frustrating, especially being 1-0 down as well. And then the ball comes across the box, and you're just thinking, come on. And yeah, he puts it in the back of the net, gets you back in the game so early on in the second half. And it was like a G up for the Riverside. Right, come on then, let's win this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? I actually felt, and it stands totally to reason, and like you said, it did look a complete weight off the shoulders. But I actually felt, and look, I don't want to go way overboard here, but there was a few moments after his goal, neat little bits of skill. He brought the ball down from a height a few times, a few touches, a few layoffs, and a few passes, where you actually thought, okay, still need to see an awful lot more from you here, but it's a weight off the shoulders. He's playing with a little bit more freedom, and you actually saw like little signs of, okay, I actually understand why you've played in the Champions League. Someone's paid 30 odd million for you from Man City, and Man City, you've been a Man City player at all. Now, again, like very much so, I want to stress, I'm not going overboard at all, but I think you could very markedly see an improvement in his performance, in his confidence, in his basically just will to want to go and find the ball. Because let's be honest, he's not playing as a number 9, is he? He's still playing that kind of weird withdrawn role. He's probably closer to Conway than what an Akpom was off Archer, let's say. But you could see him going and looking for the ball. And sometimes, you know, it's a very easy stick to beat him with, the fact that he's on so much rumoured money that everyone's immediately kind of like, well, he doesn't care, he walks around. And look, I'm not like massively disagreeing, he's been not good enough at all. But I think it very much helped him, and Carrick did speak on it during the week as well. You saw quite publicly that he's been putting in extra sessions during the international break, doing extra bits and pieces here and there, doing sort of speed and agility. And basically, as much as some people might look at it as a gimmick, some people might, think, I'm a little bit more aware. I'll judge what he does on a Saturday at 3 o'clock rather than looking at edited together videos of him going over cones and going over hurdles during the international break. But I think that does help your cause a little bit. It kind of, I guess, buys him a little. If he wasn't already on his last chance, it buys him a little bit more kind of. And it's wrong, because if he didn't post that on Instagram, he could have still been doing that work, and you know nothing about it. But you see that there's an attitude there to know that he has been off the pace and he needs to do extra work as well as just training. And then obviously Carrick touches on it, says he's a great character. He's very keen to say that, even when he's been so bad, let's be honest. And then he gets his moment today, and you just think, and you just hope that that might be, I guess, the beginning of a purple patch, something to kind of kick a bit of form into life. Even a handful of goals now could prove to be the difference between Boro getting in the top 6 or not.
Hella 8-8.
Well, I mean, it would be quite something, but yeah, look, it was a nice moment because I think you can see the emotion, and it's one of them where I don't want to kind of, again, I'm stressing for the third time, I don't want to overdo it, but look, he's a Middlesbrough player at the end of the day. When we win and he scores, great. Let's just hope he does it again at Ewood Park on Friday night, and then he can really gain that cult figure status that we're all dying for him to have. After that, Nathan, after the goal, as you say, it was relatively early, but Middlesbrough kind of, there wasn't any real lull in the kind of momentum that Middlesbrough got from that. It did feel like they, at times, were piling on the pressure. And again, slight question marks. Would I perhaps have liked Michael Carrick to be slightly more proactive? I think Bergsorg, even in the second half, was largely ineffective. It was kind of screaming out for someone off the right to change the dynamic, I guess, give I was going to call him Luton there, give Oxford something slightly different to think about from both sides, even though it was so clear for everyone else to see that Illing Jr. was getting the most joy down the left. It did take him a while, but he eventually actually takes the goal scorer off, puts force on. We did also see Morgan Whittaker enter the pitch. And I thought both made a difference, in fairness.
Yeah, I thought especially Whittaker was bright. Obviously, we've seen a couple of instances of him coming in and trying pot shots from 35 yards out with no effect. But the one that stands out today, which I was pleased to see, was him. I think it was the sort of the first time that he'd got on the ball, but he
Yeah.
drove forward, and instead of chopping in on his left foot, he took it down the wing towards the byline, delivered across, and Conway's at the back post, tries to head it back across, and yeah, the keeper coming makes a good save. But it was bright. It was a bright display from Whittaker. I was quite pleased. I thought that there was some signs where you think, okay, maybe he's sort of slowly gaining his confidence back. The couple of little intricacies with Zaz, a couple of little small passes with other forward players as well. And towards the end, obviously running the clock down as well, he did throw in a little nutmeg as well, which was quite pleasing. But yeah,
And enough to just to jump in there, enough to warrant a start on Friday night.
he offered more than Bergsorg this afternoon.
I'd agree with that.
So yeah, I think I wouldn't be against it at all. And I'd say as well, to be fair, he probably it's hard to argue in Iheanacho's case because Iheanacho scored the goal, the equaliser in the game. But I thought that Whittaker showed enough that he was probably as bright as Iheanacho as well on the day.
I thought, as I say, I thought, in fairness, I know we're specifically talking about Whittaker, but I thought that Conway and Force looked quite good together. There was a few little moments, two more natural goal scorers. I know obviously Force is usually used off the right, and we have seen him play central this season to little effect really. But okay, yes, the dynamics of the game are different when you're chasing a winner, and of course you've got that momentum, and you're going to have more of the ball. But I was pleased that both substitutions had the impact that they did, and yeah, as you said, there was the big chance for Conway and a few other chances as well, where I think potentially, I mean, just actually before Iheanacho had gone off the pitch a few times where the confidence, clear to see, could have slipped Illing Jr. in a few times and opted to go for the shot instead. Obviously, Oxford got bodies in the way, but yeah, especially given that it was not so much. I don't want to say an easy game for Whitaker to come on and make an impact because, you know, there was very much, and of course there was an urgency, but there was like, although mathematically and in terms of the table, had we have drawn the game, it wouldn't have finished our season. But there was quite a lot of pressure on Middlesbrough finding the winner, wasn't there? It did feel a little bit, and perhaps not completely in terms of the performance. It wasn't absolute kitchen sink style, but it was, in fairness, there was a lot riding on it. It did feel a little bit do or die, even at 1-1.
Yeah, and I think that you could sort of sense that in the crowd in a couple of instances where we created chances, created crossing opportunities, and delivered crosses into the box that were deflected away for throw-ins or corners. You could sort of see and hear the roar from the crowd and the
Quick
pushing the
corners
players
from
on.
Tommy Conway.
Yeah, and quick corners and throw-ins from Tommy Conway. Loves playing ball boy, doesn't he? Yeah, it did feel big to try and get the winner. And obviously, in the end, as the clock's running down, I think with 15 minutes to go, I looked at the clock and thought, there's plenty of time here. There's plenty of time. And I know that we're going to create an opportunity, at least one opportunity. And there was one where Whitaker, the ball had fallen for him. You thought, "Oh, he's going to get his first Boro goal," and it bounces off Azaz's bonds on the line, and you're just thinking, come on, please just give us something, some luck, something, a little bit of good fortune. We didn't need good fortune. The goal is fantastic, absolutely fantastic, from Morris playing it to Willing Jr., his awareness and his bit of skill to sort of scoop the ball around the corner back for Morris. Morris then sort of chopping back towards our own goal, playing a back heel up the line for Willing Jr., and his ability to pick his head up, deliver across a little bit, cut back, I suppose, and Neto, the man, the cult hero of the last couple of months, comes up with a completely ludicrous, unlikeliest of finishes that I think you'd get from your left back slash centre half. But he is Brazilian.
Yeah, I mean, they've all got that. Even the hard-faced Brazilian defenders from over the years, they've all got that little bit of samba magic. And well, he's proven that, hasn't he? Because really it's one of those really instinctive finishes where it can take a deflection off someone and you kind of think, why hasn't he just swung his boot at it and tried to strike it? When it goes in, it looks absolutely magical perfection, and you think, Samba magic, Brazilian in him. Of course he was going to do that. He was never just going to swing his left foot at it. He was, of course, going to instinctively kind of Cruyff the ball in the direction of the goal. But yeah, as you say, I mean, in fairness, I know the awards are coming up over the next however many weeks, but I'm thinking now that's surely got to be a serious contender for goal of the season, because as you say, it's not just the finish, it's the lovely scoop from Illing Jr., Aidan Morris's body feint to kind of take it one way, just enough to kind of commit an Oxford defender, Illing Jr. a bomb on. And in that position, this is one of my biggest pet hates in football. And I know we don't really do like pet peeves, but it's when that exact situation occurs, and rather than hard and low the fullback smashing the ball across the face of the box, or just smashing it across the box and hoping for someone to take a nick, obviously even better if you can pick someone out, it's when it's backheeled and the fullback just clips it. I hate it. I hate when they just clip it at the back post. Very rarely do you see someone come flying in and head it in, or it actually works. You often see it gives that extra few seconds for a defender to reposition and just get his bonce on it. Instead, create a bit of havoc, smash it into the box, and in Illing Jr., in fairness, it's that little bit of Champions League quality, if you want to call it that. It's a marvellous assist. okay, yes, the first goal, that's the better of the assists because it's a kind of, as you say, it takes a defender out the game, and it's got that kind of extra time where you've got to admire it looping around the Oxford defence. But this assist here is admittedly made to look a lot better from Neto Borges' finish, but just perfect in the sense of every component of that goal. You think it's just, it's perfection, really. That goal, I'm gonna say it. That is, and I'm completely going off recency bias here because I can't actually think of any like amazing goals we've scored this season. But that's my goal of the season already. Even if Travers knocks one in from the halfway line on Friday night, that's my goal of the season.
I think you've gone bold calling it goal of the season, but it is a very, very nice team goal and a very nice intricate finish from Neto. It is, and I suppose the importance of the goal as well, which obviously in a scenario when it's a must-win game to keep your playoff hopes alive, really, to get us back level on points with sixth position before heading into the final 7 games. It was massive and a massive opportunity playing an Oxford side which are struggling down there. No disrespect to them, but when you're looking at your fixtures, you have to take your chances against these sides that are lower down the table, and we've taken it this afternoon, which is really, really, really pleasing. And from then on, really, there wasn't a whole lot that went on in the game. There was a couple of long throws, a couple of set pieces from Oxford, which were nice to see when you had Oxford players striking the ball miles wide and miles over just to kill the game a little bit. There was a contentious penalty appeal from Boro when Force is just kicked through the back of him, right on the edge of the box.
Yeah,
You've said this is a pen.
I'm very much adamant, and especially our seats in the ground. I'm very much adamant that this was in the box and was a penalty. And I must say as well, for any Oxford fans, I don't know why they would be, but I think they're quite unfortunate to not get a penalty in the first half. Pretty similar incidents, to be fair. But yeah, I feel like possibly there should have been 2 penalties in the game. But as you say, in fairness to Middlesbrough, I think that they actually limited Oxford to basically pot shots off kind of rebounds from long throws and corners. Mark Travers, if I was going to be very critical, I'd say there was a few times where I'd have potentially liked him to come and be a little bit braver and potentially take a little bit of pressure off his defenders and come and punch a few things, but that would be me being very critical. He did do it once from memory, and the Oxford player ballooned his shot into the south stand. But yeah, I think what definitely was a major tick for me in terms of things that I enjoyed today was the fact that Carrick, we talk about it all the time. Don't wait around. Don't be too stubborn to think that we'll just do the job in the shape, in the way that we always try and do things. Be a little bit more regimented. He brought on Vandenberg, went to a back five, brought on Giles as well, and it definitely helped. It felt like to me, okay, yes, it's nervy in the stadium with the last 10 minutes, but if you watch the game back now without the atmosphere and the nerves of needing 3 points, Oxford were very much limited, and we dealt with their threat, especially that long throw, really well. I thought Vandenberg, obviously great to see him back. We're not blessed with centre halves at the moment anyway. What we are blessed with, though, and it would be impossible not to touch on him again, is the real life Benjamin Button. Just literally give Johnny Houghton a lifetime contract. That man he gets better with age. Every time you think, I think this is this is going to come to an end now. It feels like the right time. He just goes and sticks a few performances together where you think, just give him what he wants. He is, for anyone that ever gets to this stage of the season and doubts Johnny House, and then he just makes you look a fool, because he is literally a Rolls Royce today. At one point in the second half, the best I've heard the Riverside atmosphere for months. Ball's going out towards the south stand. It's took a knock off a Boro player, and you think they're potentially going to get a corner here, and it's going to make everyone bite their nails, and it's going to be a major worry. Don't worry about it. Johnny Howson will just backheel one out of Dijksteel. Cool as you like. He is. I can't say enough good things about him. He could literally play until he was 100, and I think he'd do a job. At centre half as well, he's Captain Yorkshire, isn't he?
Captain Boro. He's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. It's funny the way that you look at football now, and I don't think there's many Johnny Howsons left that can just fill in literally anywhere. I think you could put him in goal and he'd do a job. He is truly, truly top class in everything that he does. Just calm, composed, won his headers today. Just like in instances like in the first half, Harris is sort of going through on goal. And okay, his touch isn't the greatest, but Johnny Howson just comes in, sweeps him, sweeps up, takes the ball back to Travers. We go again, and you just think, yeah, you are brilliant, just absolutely brilliant, just calm, composed, top class.
There was a moment in the second half as well that I remember. Obviously, the Johnny Howson chant was booming after the back heel, but another one which, again, people may have noticed, people may not have. There was, I think it was at 1-1. In fact, no, sorry, I think it was at 2-1. Oxford go to play a huge diagonal, and I know it was touched on from Carrick, but just in terms of sometimes, I guess from being a midfielder, you've basically got to have eyes in the back of your head. You've got to know exactly where everyone is, what's going on behind you, in front of you, to the side of you, etc., etc., etc. It almost feels like sometimes Johnny Howson, from that experience of playing centre midfield, is, you can't even tell that there's a lack of pace there, because he reads the game so well that he's there before an Oxford player has the chance to react. There was a big diagonal over to, I can't remember who it was now, and Howson's basically on the touch. The Oxford player is still making a movement to try and go and get the ball, bring the ball down, and Howson's already darted in front of him, nipped in front of him, took it down, plays out wide to Dijksteel, and then I think he actually bombs on beyond, to be honest, and continues the attack. And it's just, as I say, his reading of the game is, look, I know in terms of quality players and like your Gaston Ramirez's of the world and your finer footballers, Alvaro Negredo, like serious quality footballers in terms of that just next level of quality that is, you can play at a certain level, and it's just that little bit of magic. Johnny Howson is, as you say, he's just brilliant. He's everything that you could possibly want from, if you're a young, I don't know, the coach of the kids that take the penalties at half time. If I'm going to that game and I want my kids' team to improve any position, not just the centre halves or the centre midfielders, I just say, just watch Johnny Howson, because he just does everything right.
Yeah, Johnny Howson's 37 in May. And
Genuinely,
I could genuinely make a case that he's our best centre half at the football club.
well,
I'm not even joking.
This is another thing. Obviously, today's a massive win, but going into Blackburn on Friday night, despite the fact that Rav van den Berg's back, and despite the fact that George Edmondson is nearing fitness again. I mean, it would be a crazy decision to throw him back in anyway. But for me, and I know it was asked of Carrick after the game on tees, but it would be ludicrous to change that back four on Friday night.
Yeah.
Unless Howson is fatigued, which is quite unlikely, to be honest. We know exactly what he's like. There's no reason for me to change that back four unless there's an injury. Because yes, okay, again, similar to Luton, they've got away with a few things in the first half, but none of those really come from errors from the two centre halves. I think they give us, both of them give us, a really calming presence. I mean, Neto Borges, we've sung his praises over the last couple of months. As you say, he's become a real sort of cult hero, but his balance in terms of his left foot, I think for me now, he's basically, even when Fry, Vandenberg, Edmondson, etc., are back, he's nailed down that left-sided centre-half spot. I honestly wouldn't change him, even if we had all centre-halves available now. Okay, Johnny Howson, at some point or another, someone's probably going to come in for him just out of sheer minutes, and obviously he hasn't played an awful lot of football this season, but the pair of them there, it's the best our defence has looked all season.
Which is outrageous. But yeah, there you go. And as mentioned at the start of the podcast, we needed to win today, looking at the fixtures around the table. And I remember I came up to you at halftime and said, typical, we're getting beat, and so is everyone else. So it's just absolutely great. And then you come out at the end of the game, think, yes, we've done our job. What's the fixtures looking like? What's the results looking like? Burnley 1, Bristol City 0. Norwich 1, West Brom 0, which I thought Norwich were closer to us than they actually are. So that's quite nice. Portsmouth 1, Blackburn 0. And last night, to start the weekend off, Sheffield United 3, Coventry 1. So that means that Coventry, who were above us, West Brom, who were above us, Bristol City, who were above us, all picked up a massive total of 0 points across all three sides this weekend, and Boro collected a big 3 points. So now, level on points with 6th place West Brom, jumped over Bristol City in the table, and it's nice to be in a position now, because at the start of today, we had a job on our hands to cut that gap. The gap is cut in a game. The gap is cut in a game. So now you have to make sure that that gap does not open again with Boro on the wrong side of that gap. Personally, would quite enjoy Friday night, Boro are the opening fixture of the weekend. Go and lay down a marker at Ewood Park. Go and lay down a marker at Ewood Park and make sure that you are the side that is in the driving seat going into the weekend. You do not want to let Blackburn Rovers back in, because at the minute they are faltering, miles off it at the minute. And since the change of manager with Eustace leaving, they have since really, really struggled. I mean, 5 defeats in 6. They are being edged out of games at this moment in time. And also, from what I can gauge around the fan base at Blackburn, with the game being on Sky, with them being televised, they can make a little bit of a stand against their ownership. I think it'll be a little bit of a toxic atmosphere there as well, which, fingers crossed, plays into our hands. A team that hopefully
Let's
has a
hope
little bit
it's
of
not
confidence.
a Charlton Athletic 2015-16
Yeah,
performance.
yeah, was literally about to earmark that game as one where it just didn't go our way. But we're in a good spot. hopefully, to go to Blackburn, go to a side that's low on confidence, and deliver a result. If you asked me this time last month, was I confident to go to Blackburn at the start of April? No chance. Now, I'm still not massively confident because of our track record there, because I know that this Boro team can just throw in a Swansea-esque performance.
Yeah.
My trust isn't completely there at all with this Boro team, but I've just got everything crossed that they can deliver something for me and
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah. And to be honest, look, like, as you say, the way this division is, it's crazy every year, but it seems mental to say that. I guess in terms of, I wouldn't look at this way because I'm a Middlesbrough fan and I'm very much a glass half empty type of Middlesbrough supporter, because I know the whole, as anyone that's followed this club for long enough, you know you can never get too far ahead of yourselves. But I think you'll probably go into this game and you'll see the bookies will most likely have us down as the favourite, to be honest. And I don't think that's necessarily the case, but it is a game where, with the ownership issues, the fact that we've come off the back of a win and a big 3 points, they're obviously faltering. Their fans are not having Ismail at all. And obviously, to be honest, I don't think it's a managerial thing. I think it's largely down to the ownership problems. Bizarrely enough, in their statement this week, basically confirmed that their higher ups will still be attending the games at Ewood Park from now until the end of the season, featuring chief of football or some kind of title, Rudy Gestead. I mean, bizarre, just really football manager-esque. I kind of try to eradicate that name from my mind and football history, to be honest. But yeah, an atmosphere where you'd like to think, and I'm not saying that I'm confident that Middlesbrough necessarily will, because you never know what you're going to get with this team, but very much an atmosphere and a situation where you hope that will play into Middlesbrough's hands. And if you can get, let's say, an early goal quite quickly, that's going to become majorly toxic. So that's, ideal scenario. You take an early lead and it turns, and then, almost what's on the pitch becomes kind of second rate, and it's more so just everything's being targeted towards that director's box at Ewood Park. But yeah, it's just nice to be recording a podcast where I'm really, really trying to draw myself back in, because I don't want to do what is so easy to do when your team wins on a Saturday after an international break and think, we might have turned a corner here, because you don't know what you're going to get. But it's nice to just be going to Ewood Park, as you say, with that little bit extra confidence that there is a chance. And let's be fair, this Middlesbrough team, although yes, they have it in them, they absolutely do have it in them to throw in a Swansea. But I think what's most pleasing for me today, and even going back to the Derby County win at home as well, they're both games, in fairness, that I think Middlesbrough would have dropped points in earlier this season. They wouldn't have found a way. And in 2 games, they actually have found a way. And yes, a little bit fortuitous, but they've done their job today, and you've got to give them credit for that.
Yeah, and I would say that what is especially nice is that we obviously recovered a deficit as well. Came
Yeah,
came from 1-0 down, which we've only done twice this season, and they were both against Oxford.
poor Oxford.
Poor Oxford. So there you go. But we've just talked about Blackburn's problems, but they have beaten us twice this season
Yeah,
already.
they have. But I guess the kind of major sort of point in that is 2 Blackburn Rovers teams managed by John Eustace.
Yeah,
So very much a different proposition. But yeah, as you say, they've. I mean, for the majority of kind of the last few years, really, they've kind of had one over on us for the most part. That it's basically them and Bristol City, and Coventry that have kind of been Middlesbrough's bogey teams for God knows how long now. So yeah, hopefully it's very much an Ewood Park live on Sky Middlesbrough performance in the mould of Marcus Force and Riley McGree, really, really getting that upwards trajectory going in Michael Carrick's first season in charge. We may well be very excited if we do see scenes like that at Ewood Park. Obviously next week when we're back with another episode of the Boropolis podcast. But yeah, Nathan, let's just curb things there before we get ourselves in a silly situation where we have some kind of crazy, irrational feeling that Middlesbrough are going to stick a run of 7 games together. Nathan, thank you ever so much for your time this evening. Obviously, as we've said, it's always a pleasure to record this podcast off the back of a Middlesbrough win. So yeah, just a bit of housekeeping to finish up on. If you have enjoyed and watched on YouTube, please do like and subscribe. On audio platforms, of course, you can rate and review and also subscribe to the podcast to make sure that you don't miss an episode. And yes, thank you ever so much for watching. Thank you ever so much for listening. And that has been another episode of the Boropolis podcast.